things have changed dramatically in 14 years. And I can tell you what's changed. The moral foundation is on a downhill spiral. It's collapsing. What do I mean by that? I mean it's been okay to say, do anything you want to do to win. Anything you want to do to get what you want down in Lansing, just say it. And I can tell you, the last night that Ed served, we had a big bill that went through, and it had to do with energy. And there was this big issue about Ed getting in trouble with leadership because he got on the floor. He was the last chance we had to stop what was happening. And Ed educated himself on the rules. And guess what? He knows the rules better than leadership knew them. So he used it to his advantage on the House floor. And I got to tell you, folks, I'm in the Senate. The Senate Majority Leader sits right behind me. I can hear him when he's whispering. And I can tell you how mad they were that Ed did what he did. Now, why would I tell you that? You know why Ed did it? Because it wasn't so much that everything in the bill was wrong. It was that the way they got there, folks, is they lied to us. They went over to the House and agreed with agreements on the bill, came over to the Senate and threw away their cards that said they approved what we were doing and opposed when they came to the Senate. They only did it to make the Northern Michigan guys vote for it because it was the only way they were going to get it out of the chamber. And then it came over to the Senate. They knew over the Senate they'd get enough guys behind it to support it, and they would get what they wanted. Ed stood up, and I would argue at great cost, because leadership did not like what he did, because they were going along with the power companies. I had the governor come over to me that evening, and he knew we were upset. He knew the UP was upset, or the Northern Michigan guys, but he said, Tom, we're going to stand with the UP. I just know we're still with you. And I said, Governor, do you think I'm upset because we didn't get what we wanted? Do you think that's what it is? And he just stared at me. I said, it had nothing to do with that, Governor. It had to do that we down here know they lied to us, and we let them have it anyway. Folks, Ed has been proven that he's going to stand for the truth. He can't lie to us. He's just not wired that way. And I'm telling you, we need a dose of that more than ever before. Ever before. Because we're heading in the wrong direction. And I don't care if it's Republican or Democrat. The Republicans are fighting on one side, and they got all the answers, and the Democrats are fighting on the other side, and nobody cares about the truth in the middle anymore. And nobody cares about honesty anymore. It's just a matter of, I've got to get my way or else. Folks, that's how important this is right now. And I can tell you, out of all the people I don't know his opponent in the primary very well. He seems like a decent enough guy. I know Ed. I've served with Ed. He serves with integrity and truth. I don't know what more people would want than that. Check him out. You guys have. I can tell you this, his opponent in the Democratic side is going to be formidable. But I guarantee you, having served with him as many years as I have, doesn't even come close to the things I just said Ed possesses. So we can go party lines here, and the party can play its games here. It can go Democratic, like the UP usually does in many cases. We got to get out and convince people that are in the middle of the road not to do that, because this move for the UP will be dangerous. And things will not go so well for us if we don't take the opportunity to get a guy like Ed to go get into this thing. And Ed's the only one that can win this seat. I know that. So I'm rambling, but it's that important. I'm leaving, but it's that important to get the right people in. And we need moral people in our government that are going to fight for the truth. And it's lacking really bad. It is. We need leaders to be examples, because we all could use a dose of that. With that, Ed McBroom.
Thank you very much to Tom, and I'd like us to give an applause to Tom for all of his hard work for 14 years. Tom got me into this mess. And been my friend and mentor, and I tell you that one of the worst prospects about going back to Lansing, aside from the time away from my own family is that Tom won't still be there anymore. And it's going to make it a lot different to go back and not have him there. But I hope that I can fill his shoes and do as good a job for the UP as Tom has done. And I'm fortunate to have somebody who wants to be a good partner on the House side. He's here somewhere, or was. Is Bo still here?
He's in the lobby with phone.
Oh, he's on the phone, but most of you know Bo, and he's been around this evening too, and I just want to look forward to working with Bo over on the House side and trying to continue the pattern of having a good legislative team for the UP. It's, like Tom said, it's going to be a really tough race, certainly the hardest race that I've had since 2010, and I could really use all of the help that you can possibly give. And thank you so much for being here tonight, for your donations, but there's so much more that you can do. All of you have people and a network of some sort, big or small, that reaches outside of the Delta, Dickinson, Menominee County area in particular. And I need those connections. I need your help making those connections in the other counties in the UP. Whether you can help put together a meet and greet at somebody's house, or at a place of business, or a restaurant in a small town or a big town around the rest of the Upper Peninsula. Whether you can help me find folks in other areas who'd like to do fundraisers. I need the opportunities to go to different events, whether they're business after hours or other community events that are going on around the UP. And unfortunately, I've enjoyed so much getting to know all of you and work in this community, but I'm not going to be able to spend as much time in this community during this race. I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the 110th district, which is the west end of the UP. That's where Rep. Deanda is from, and there are a lot of voters over there who have voted for Scott pretty passively. I'm starting to find that out and see people who are like, well, the Republicans didn't really offer any good alternatives the last couple of years, so we voted for Scott, but we'd like to vote for somebody else, but they need to get to know me, and I have to spend a lot of time meeting each one of them. There's a lot of distance out there. I was to White Pine and then up to Twin Lakes, and there's a lot of space in between houses over there, so it takes a lot of work to get to know enough people. So if you have friends or family connections in those areas and you can help me leverage those, I would be very grateful, and that would be a really big help. I'm going to continue to try to be the man that Tom graciously tries to identify me as, and I can't say that I've always been perfect at that, but it is my goal to always be just plain honest with you about things. And whether you like the votes or don't like the votes, I don't try to sugarcoat it and give you any sort of snow job. I just try to tell you why I felt the way I did, and I'll continue to try to be that honest with you. There's a lot of issues that I still want to work on, but just boiling it down to a couple of the big ones. One, I want to continue from the first campaign, and that's continuing to do education reforms that return control back to our local level. Now, we got some headway. I don't know if you remember from 2010, but it was a big deal how the schools have been forced to not offer technical education classes, vocational education classes. We've made progress, we got some of that back, but there's still so much more to do. The arts are still out in the cold, there's still more we can do for vocational, and I really believe that the best solution is allowing our local schools to have that freedom to determine education choices again for themselves, as they did before 2004. So that's what I want to see going on there, is more discussion about local control. It almost sounds self-affirming to say this, but we need to do something about auto insurance. It is a big deal. That your vote? Yeah. Amen. So, but we need, Michigan auto insurance continues to be out of control. It was an issue that I worked on all during my 6 years. Bo has gotten the ball to move at least far enough now that we know for sure who's with us and who's against us. And my Democrat opponent voted against fixing auto insurance. He voted against you being able to save 40% a year on your policy. And so that's going to continue to be a big part of the campaign too, is that we should vote for these pieces of legislation. We should get some reforms through, and we can't be snowed by the talk that says, well, first thing we do is we'll create another government bureaucracy to monitor fraud. Because that's what my opponent is talking about. Let's create a fraud authority, and we'll all pay for that with our tax dollars so our auto insurance goes down. And to me, it's kind of like, I'm not sure how we end up saving any money if we do that. So the best way to get rid of fraud is to remove the incentive to commit fraud in the first place. And that's what true reform to auto insurance will help us do. So those are just a couple of the issues. Aside from that, I think Tom would tell you, I developed a real passion in my 6 years for more government accountability. And that's why I served on the Flint water investigation as the point person for the House of Representatives. It's why I worked on the Veterans Home catastrophe in Grand Rapids and chaired the committees that was investigating that. I really got into finding where the government is making bad mistakes and wasting our dollars and calling for more accountability. And some of that accountability comes through legislating better process, and some of it just comes from getting rid of the bad people or the bad structures that are there and fixing it that way. But there's so much more we could do for that. Just as a farmer, recognizing that we could get rid of, that we could be doing a lot better with handling bovine tuberculosis downstate, and what that could do for agriculture around the entire state if somebody would take that problem seriously enough to really go after and get rid of it, as states like Minnesota and Texas and Indiana and others have already done, and yet Michigan for 20 years has made no progress. And those things like that are just ridiculous and have to be dealt with. Anyway, I don't want to bore you all night with policy, because that's my favorite thing. But I want to make sure that you've had a chance to meet my wife, Sarah. And 4 of the 5 kids are here. My 10-year-old stayed home to help my brother with the cows, because we have another meeting later tonight that he has to go to. So Eddie is at home, but Helen, who's 11, Esther, who just turned 8, and Jack, who's 5, and then Edie, who's 1. They're all here tonight, and I couldn't do it without them and their support too. I hope you enjoyed the pizza and pop, and thank you again so much for your support. Since you got back in the room, let Bo have a few minutes of your time, if that's all right.